Are you ready? We're on? Okay. So we are on the section about the higher training in concentration. And we've just started that the last couple of weeks, yeah. So we'll continue this evening. We're on the section right now about if you want to, we did in the past weeks, the benefits of concentration, why attain it, so why cultivate it. And tonight about the good circumstances you need if you are really serious in generating serenity or shamatha. Yeah, it's something that you can develop gradually in your daily practice, but you won't get full shamatha, it seems like, unless it's in a retreat situation. And then once you have that, then, then you have to keep it up, not necessarily in retreat, but you have to keep up the meditation. It isn't like learning to drive a car and you never forget that, although maybe some people do, I don't know. Or typing, yeah. So we'll talk about that this evening, okay? But first, let's visualize the mirror field. And make sure we have our refuge clear, where we're turning for spiritual guidance, and our motivation clear about why we're doing it. Because it's only when we do concentration practice with refuge and the three jewels, only then does it become a Buddhist practice. Because people from other religions and other Buddhists, other religions, other wandering groups, whatever, they also practice concentration. But we don't call that a Buddhist practice for them because they're not doing it within the context of the Buddhist worldview and turning for spiritual guidance to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So their motivation for practice might be different.
To the teacher endowed, transcendent destroyer, oneness come, foe destroyer, completely and fully awakened one, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, one gone to bliss, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you the Buddha endowed, transcendent destroyer, glorious conqueror, Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. One, O supreme among humans, you are born on this earth, you paced 7 strides and said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise, then I bow. With pure bodies formed supremely fine, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best supreme guide, to you I bow. With the supreme signs, face like a spotless moon, color like gold, to you I bow. You are immaculate, the 3 worlds are not, incomparable, wise one, to you I bow. Great compassionate protector, all-knowing teacher, field of merit and good qualities, vast as an ocean, to the Tathagata I bow. Through purity, freeing from attachment, through virtue, freeing from the lower realms. Unique, supreme, ultimate reality, to the Dharma that is peace I bow. Having freed themselves, showing the path of freedom to, well established in the trainings. The holy field endowed with good qualities, to the Sangha I bow. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind completely, this is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a mirage, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew, a bubble. A dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see conditioned things as such. Through this merit may sentient beings attain the state of all-seeing, subdue the foe of faults, and be delivered from the ocean of cyclic existence, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. This ground anointed with perfume, flowers strewn Mount Meru, foreland, sun and moon, imagined as a Buddha land and offered to you. May all beings enjoy this pure land. Venerable holy gurus, in the space of your truth body, from billowing clouds of your wisdom and love, let fall the rain of the profound and extensive Dharma, in whatever form is suitable for subduing sentient beings. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. So let's use the 4 immeasurables to generate our bodhicitta motivation. And these 4 are also very effective for helping us deal with what is happening in the country and the world and society now. So the first one is love. All sentient beings have happiness and its causes. So think here particularly of the people who in your eyes are causing or lie behind the confusion, the divisiveness, the harsh speech, and focus for a minute on wishing them to be happy. Because if they were happy, they would be speaking and doing things in a very, very different way. And compassion is wishing sentient beings to be free of suffering and its causes. So again, wish this for the same group of people. So instead of being angry at them,
think of them as, or wish them to be happy with love, and then see that it's their pain and their confusion that are motivating so much of the negativity and the policies that we may disagree with, and have compassion for them, for their misery, and especially the dukkha of the third kind of dukkha, of just having a body and mind under the power of karma and afflictions, and cultivate compassion. And then joy, wishing sentient beings never to be separated from sorrowless bliss, that is, to attain nirvana. And wouldn't that be wonderful if these confused sentient beings who just are trying to be happy, but creating so much negativity, well, wouldn't it be nice if they had the peace of knowing reality, had the peace of nirvana? And wish that for them. And then equanimity, wishing sentient beings to be free of attachment to friends, aversion to enemies, and any kind of bias or prejudice that they may have. And wish them to have that. Wow, wouldn't things be different? And for them, having a peaceful, quantumous mind, and for those who are influenced by their actions. So wishing this for sentient beings is one step in the right direction, but we can't leave it at that. We have to really aspire for full awakening so that we can actively help sentient beings, and especially those people that are causing problems now because they're unhappy. Yeah. Generate our aspiration for full awakening for all of them, not leaving anybody out. And that's our motivation for teachings this evening. Does that help a little bit with any anxiety or fear or anger? It's, I find it quite helpful. And especially for me, what really strikes me as so heart-wrenching is that people don't have any idea of karma and its effects. And so wanting happiness and not suffering, but not understanding karma and effects, not seeing ignorance, anger, and attachment as motivations that cause you to do things that hurt yourself as well as harm others. That to me seems like such a tragedy, you know? That's, yeah. And so if that's the case, you know, then we should do our best to help them, you know, not be angry, not be cynical, but do what we can. And to do that, we have to practice what we preach. That's hard, isn't it? It's much easier to tell other people what they need to practice. Okay. So the section we're on, it's talking about, it's from Shravaka Bhumi by a Sangha, and Kamala Shila in his middle stages of meditation. This section here about what is a conducive situation for developing shamatha or serenity. And the Chinese master Ji, 6th century, he had the same ones. He might have read even the same texts. Imagine that. And, you know, and so his explanation is mixed in here. Yeah, I was one time, Venerable Zhenhu, who you know, who practices Chinese Chan, and one time I was meeting him at Sunnyvale, and then we were going to a conference or something. So I walked in the Sunnyvale Zen Center, and he was busy teaching, so I just sat outside and I listened. And what's he teaching? He's teaching the 8 faults and the 15 antidotes to, you know, involved in generating shamatha. And I'm going, oh yeah, you know, of course. So, you know, we share so many of the same texts. So he's teaching something that I'm quite familiar with. Yeah, it's very nice. Okay, so the first, we covered this last time, but I want to go over it, was a favorable place. Okay, so you're not going to develop shamatha, you know, in the middle of the city with, you know, the traffic outside and your phone and your, you know, texting and everything, and then having to go out and go grocery shopping and fight traffic and things like that is too distracting of an environment. So it has to be a place that's calm, quiet, healthy, where you can receive food, clothing, shelter, and medicine with ease, you know, so that you can really devote your time to practice. Yeah. So they say, you know, you don't want to have a lot of wild animals. Actually, if you're in the city, it's going to be wild people. You know, when I moved out here and I was living alone, people said, aren't you afraid living all alone there? I said, I'm more afraid being in the city Yeah, out here, the animals, I see them sometimes, but nobody bothers me. Okay, so also a favorable place, we should be near other meditators or Dharma friends, or better yet, our teachers, who, if we run into problems, can give us advice. Yeah, because when you're doing concentration meditation, all sorts of stuff comes up. Yeah, and things that you haven't thought about in years, a lot of psychological, going round and around. And, somebody said this to me 15 and a half years ago, and I still don't understand what they meant, and I haven't felt comfortable with them since. And what was that? And going around, and so said they had a problem with that person too, but it's not such a, you know what I mean? Yeah, how we just go round and around and ruminate about something. And all that comes up. Yeah, so if you're not somebody who is skilled in dealing with this kind of stuff that comes up, and you need help, then it's really good to have a Dharma friend or a teacher or other meditators around who have dealt with stuff that comes up. Yeah. And when other stuff comes up, like the jingles for commercials when you were a kid, but you can't remember the last line. Yeah. And you're going round and around, Mickey. What comes next? Mickey. Huh? Then you can ask somebody else what the next line is, which is? See. So, and then your mind starts thinking about mice. We're very creative, You go from Mickey Mouse, then you think of mice, and then you think of, okay, I'm thinking of mice. You're in free, what do you think? Free association. So the last time I heard about mice was when you took out the Buddhist statues, and the Buddhist statues were okay, but there was some mice poop around them. And then from there, I go to thinking about the Buddhist statues, and they were made out of foam. And like, how do you make statues out of foam? But we still have to put the sokshin and the mantra rolls inside. And people have been rolling a lot of those, but do we have enough? Next break time, I should go and look and see how many we have, and talk to you, disturb your retreat, and ask, how many do we need? And then I have to look for the sheet that tells us where in the Buddha's body to put certain mantras. And then from there, I go to the first time I filled a large statue, which was the statue that is now sitting in the Posada room. That was from DFF. And we did that, and Khensa Rinpoche came to bless that. And then I think, no, actually that wasn't the first one I filled. It was one at the Dharmas at ABC when we were on Butterfly Avenue. And I filled that one because I had gone to Dharamsala and brought back the mantra rolls. But we didn't really have enough, but somehow we found enough stuff to put in it. And then Sakya Treason came to bless it. And then I think about Sakya Treason, then I think, oh, well, he has these sons, and now they're alternating the leadership of the Sakya tradition. Yeah? So what did I start out with? I can't even remember. Mickey. And then, I went all the way around, And this is the way our mind works, isn't it? You know? So we have to really learn to deal with that. And if, we get lost in some memory, to have somebody we can talk to who's going to pull us out of it, because from there, from Sakya Treason, then, oh yeah, and he has his sons, and they have a very good relationship, but my relationship with my parents was blah, 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 and that comes up again, and then you start thinking of things that happened when you were little, and then, yeah. So many things to ruminate about. Yeah, it keeps our minds very busy, huh? So, yeah. We need to know the antidotes to all these ruminations, but, when we get stuck, it's good to have others to talk to. Or when you're visualizing the Buddha, the Tibetans love to tell one story of one man, when the Lama told him, visualize the Buddha above your head. Yeah, so he's trying to see the Buddha above his head. Don't roll your eyes back. Just imagine the Buddha on your head. But this monk was bald, and the Buddha kept slipping off. So he was very worried about, visualizing Buddha, and the Buddha slips this way, and he slips this way. Yeah. And then, but I'm visualizing the Buddha in front, but how big is he? Is he this big? Is he this big? Is he this big? And, can I visualize him changing robes each time one day he's in Theravada robe, next day he's in Chinese robes, and he's in Tibetan robes. People go through all this kind of stuff, And it's like, can I visualize Chenrezig in a different color? Can I, yeah. All this, yeah. I mean, people in the West, they want to really make everything their own, in the sense of not do it in the way that will actually bring the result you want. You can't go around changing the color of the deities, It just, that color is for a certain reason. I had one person ask me one time, because they had developed a new chant for the Tara mantra. It was a beautiful chant, they told me. I don't think I heard it, but they said they love this chant, but they need to add 2 extra syllables to the Tara mantra to use the chant. Is that okay? What do you think I said? No. Oh, they were so sad, But yeah. Okay. So then the second condition, first one was a favorable place. Second condition is we must develop a clear and correct understanding of the instructions. Okay, so be very clear and have the correct idea of what the instructions are. Okay, so we need that to gain serenity and to overcome any errors and any difficulties that arise while we're meditating. So studying not only the essential instructions on meditation, but also the major scriptures that speak of serenity will benefit our practice greatly. These include the descriptions of the 5 faults and the 8 antidotes. I said 8 faults and 5 antidotes. I got it upside down. It's 5 faults. No. 5 faults and 8 antidotes. We'll get to it. And the 9 stages of sustained attention in texts written by Maitreya, Asanga, and Kamalashila. Okay, so to study those, have an idea when you you know about the 9 stages of sustained attention, then you can, track how you're developing, and you have a map of like how to assess your meditation. The Sutra Unraveling Thought, the Samdhi Sutra, also contains instructions on the practice to attain serenity. So reading these, knowing them, because otherwise you'll be like me when I went to my first meditation course and the lamas were late. So, this lady with no hair and a man wearing a skirt, said, let's meditate. I had no idea, but I remember seeing a picture of somebody sitting like this. And so I sat like that and tried to roll my eyes back in my head, because that's what I thought you did. Everybody always looked like they were, in another planet when they're meditating. So I didn't want to look like I didn't know what I was doing, even though I didn't know what I was doing. So it's so easy to have all sorts of wrong understandings about things, because you just look through, a New Age magazine and you see things and you say, oh, well, that's the way you're supposed to do it. And you don't have the correct instructions. Okay, so Ji instructs us to stay near our teacher and good Dharma friends. Teachers instruct and guide us through giving teachings, and Dharma friends encourage and support our cultivation and give us lots of tissue when we need it. So, you pick out your friends by how much tissue they have. We support and encourage them in their Dharma practice, so we mutually benefit each other. And you can see that. I was telling you about in the mountains above Dharamsala and so on, where they have little communities of monks doing retreat. And, they stay quiet and they stay to themselves, but just living near each other and knowing other people are practicing, and going through probably something similar to what you're going through, then it gives you, some inspiration and things you can discuss in common with them if stuff comes up. Okay, the third condition is being free from coarse desires and having few desires. So that is important. Even if we live in a secluded place, if we crave a soft bed, music, delicious food, sex, or a good sci-fi, or a novel, our mind will be constantly distracted. Okay, so free of coarse desires, having few desires. But we've been conditioned, from day one to have a lot of desires. And we've been told that this is what makes you a good citizen, because you consume and that helps the economy. Okay, so those of you who were, alive in 2001, after 9/11, what were we told? Go shopping, because it's good for the economy. So if we have a lot of these kind of cravings and desires, we want this and that, and the latest iPhone, the latest widget, gadget, the latest blender for the kitchen, you want to redo your carpet, you want to, everything. You have a Tesla and you want to get rid of your Tesla, but you really like that, you wanted that Tesla, that's why you got it, because it was really cool, a couple of years ago to have a Tesla, and but now you don't want it, What are you going to trade it in for? Or are you going to burn it? Or put it outside for somebody else to burn? Or no, that's really not so cool, and that's not good for the environment. Don't burn your Tesla. But, well, what car am I going to have? And so, your mind's just busy with all of this. And then what kind of insurance and for what amount of money and et cetera, et cetera. Okay, our mind will be constantly distracted. So Xi emphasizes that renouncing the 5 objects of sensual desire is essential for our meditation practice to progress. Attachment to visual forms, especially good-looking people, is a huge obstacle to cultivating concentration. Yeah, because you're supposed to be focusing, on Chenrezig, who, looks nice. He's not, we're not saying Hayagriva, we're saying Chenrezig. But, oh, my boyfriend keeps appearing. Yeah, my boyfriend, yeah, I want to see beautiful things. Or I want nice tankas. Yeah, I want artwork. Yeah. So you see it as artwork, not as holy objects. These things are holy objects, they aren't artwork. But we want artwork. Yeah. And it can be a holy object. It can be a holy object and an artwork. Yeah. Then I get praise from all my friends when they trudge up the mountain to see my beautifully decorated cave. Okay. So attachment to visual forms, especially good-looking people, is a huge obstacle. Yeah. Clinging to sounds, especially sweet, ego-pleasing sounds of praise and good reputation, not to mention singing and music, captivate and distract us. And so you start planning your skits and the songs that you're going to sing for the skits when you're done with your 3-year retreat. So you make sure you write down all the scores for the songs, because you have to wait 3 years to do them. You're only on day 1, But in the meantime, you can plan and change the lyrics and, does it go up? Does it go down? What beat? How is it going? And what do you do when you teach it to other people and they change the melody and they slow it down so that when you compose it as a perky song, they're not more, they slow it down. So, think, what are you going to do? Okay, so remember that even the most delightful and endearing sounds do not last even a split second. They vanish as soon as they arise, so there is nothing to cling to. Yeah, any sound, how long does it exist? Yeah, it's gone. It is gone. Okay. Similarly, craving fragrances. Yeah, what fragrance are you thinking? What do you want? Lavender essential oil. No, you're not smiling. What?
Red crystal incense.
Who?
Incense.
Incense. But incense makes you cough. But sandalwood incense. That's on the other side of the room, so it doesn't make you cough. Yeah, nice fragrances. The fragrance of baked goods. And then that brings you to the sensual desire for food. Yeah, which just happens to arise 2 or 3 times a day, at least, if not more. Yeah. So taste and wonderful tactile sensations. Yes, I want my blankie. Yeah, and a nice soft jacket and this, and I have to set the air con in my cave for a different setting. It's too cold. I want it warmer, and on and on. We're so attached to the sense objects, and we always want to change something to improve it so it becomes exactly what we want at that moment. Yeah. But in an hour, are we going to want that temperature? Are we going to want that same taste? No, we'll probably be on to other things to crave and have desire for. Okay, big obstruction. So you see, when you see things like this, this is why it's so important to know what the 8 worldly concerns are and to know what the antidotes to them are. Because if you can't identify them, then they just come and you're off and running with the distraction. Or even you identify them, it's like you're dreaming about having a wonderful reputation, in your club of people who grow bonsai. You want to be the best bonsai gardener. And how are you going to have that reputation and keep it up? And you're going on. And you need to know the antidotes when you're attached to your reputation. You're not even asking for a good reputation for being a meditator. That comes next after you get over the bonsai. But we have to, know how to deal with these things so that we dampen these kinds of desires and attachments. Okay, so similarly, craving fragrances, tastes, and wonderful tactile sensations is fruitless, for these pleasures do not last, and procuring and protecting them easily leads to destructive karma and fritters away our precious human life. Yeah. So one friend I had was going to do a long retreat. She spent quite a bit of time building her retreat hut. Well, it wasn't a hut, it was kind of like a house, a very nice one, a very nice house in India. And then being a foreigner, she had to worry about visas. So, then she had to go down the hill to where you renew your visa at the Indian registry. So it takes you most of a day to go down the hill, wait in line, deal with somebody, come back up. But then other people who were staying, other Westerners around there who were staying around, they also had problems with their visas and they wanted to do a retreat too. So then she started giving them advice about how to deal with the guy at the visa office. And then, she started taking their passports down and helping them fill out the form. But, this visa office, I don't know, did you deal with it at all? The one in Lower Dharamshala? Yeah. It's really a trip. They really, when people don't feel like they have much power, then they make themselves powerful. And if you can, cause, somebody who wants to renew their visa, if you can make them anxious and upset and make them come back again and again and wait in line again and again, you feel like, you have some power and control. Maybe they'll give you a little something in the passport. I don't know. So, so she just got all caught up in helping people. So she started out with, I want to help, but her priority was not her meditation retreat. So she very easily got distracted. Yeah. Okay. So then the fourth one is a mind that is satisfied and content, one that doesn't desire more and better. So that kind of mind is able to meditate. But like I was just saying, we usually want more and we want better. We never have enough. Never. Yeah, whatever it is, we could always use more. Because we should save it for the future when we may not have it. Yeah. So we want more and we want better quality. So then we start having to research what is better quality than what we have now, and what are the best bargain prices for getting, 2 tons of sweet potatoes, and then if you get 2 tons of sweet potatoes, where are you going to put them? Well, then you need to build a certain facility for them. And of course, you need the right kind of stove to cook them. And then you need some cookbooks, so that 5,013 ways to cook sweet potatoes. And, okay. So 9, that is satisfied and content. One that doesn't desire more and better is able to meditate. Such contentment is rare in modern society, where most people constantly try to better their position and increase their possessions. And this is what we're taught that is the meaning of success. More possessions, because that indicates that you have more money, which means that you're successful, and a better position. Yeah. I want more reputation. I need to, get my name out there. My website needs to be expanded, so it's in all, how many languages there are in this world, plus a few ancient ones. You want to be more famous, and so your mind gets off and running about that. So we may have to combat some of our previous conditioning and the expectations of society and family to develop contentment. And that's really true. We have to be willing to have our own value of how much we need and, the minimum we can get by with, and be content with that. And if people come by or your family, makes comments about, oh, you went to school, and we thought you would have a great career, and look what you're doing. Or your old friends come by, they're not Buddhist, but they want to check out what you're doing because, a few years ago you went to the class reunion after you graduate, they haven't seen. So they stop by and they start telling you about their lives and their family and their career, and what would have happened if I had taken that direction? Oh, that's a new distraction. I could have done that. Yeah, you could have grown your green mohawk for long time to come. Yeah, made it really big. Yeah. So, so this happens. Okay. So we have to combat some of our previous conditioning and other people's expectations, and really see which of those expectations we have internalized. So is it really that I feel I should have a better name and some more money for my parents' sake? Or is that the way I'm going to feel like my life was useful? Yeah. Or at least do retreat, come out with some, having seen the whole merit field in living color, and be able to do a live interview, telling about my meditation experiences and how wonderful they were, by the way, how wonderful I am. And, so we have so much old conditioning from family and society, and it's really important to look at that. Yeah. Okay. Having sufficient clothing and food is important. Otherwise, the mind will be unduly disturbed, making meditation difficult. So you can't go on ascetic trips. Yeah, because then you're going to be hungry. Your meditation is really going to be disturbed. So you don't deliberately, go on an ascetic trip, but if you're not receiving a lot of offerings or the person bringing you food, doesn't come, then to learn to be content and make do with what you have. Yet being content with what we have can be challenging. Ji explains 3 approaches to clothing depending on our level of renunciation. So the first, you're going to like this. The first is to wear a single cloak, as the Buddha did in his previous lives as a bodhisattva. He did not see many people, and his body was strong enough to endure the elements. So you're going to have one robe, summer, winter, everything in between. Yeah, that's one way to do it. Yeah. The second is to have only a single set of monastic robes, as Mahakassapa, a close disciple of the Buddha, did. So you're splurging. Now you have a single set of robes. Yeah, then you have to wash them. So, get out those fig leaves. Or newspaper, whatever. Okay. And the third, for people residing in cold climates, whose ability to endure the weather is not developed, is to have an extra set of robes and other garments as the Buddha permitted for when you're living in a very cold climate. Yeah. However, they are to mentally offer these to the Buddha so as to not be self-indulgent or accumulate many possessions. But it's amazing, you start out with very little, but then you need, a jacket for when it starts to get cold in the autumn. Yeah, so a jacket for September. Yeah. By the end of October, it's colder, so you need another jacket. By November, it's Thanksgiving, it's getting really cold, so you need another, and on and on and on, okay? So always needing more and better, yeah? And trying to do some kind of ascetic trip. Lama Yeshe did not like this at all. He didn't like, when we were dissatisfied and wanted more and better. But when people occasionally would try and do ascetic trips, he would call them out. So there was one monk. Was he a monk at that time? Maybe. He's no longer a monk, but he was a monk at that time. And the Sangha at that time, it was living in this old brick building at Kopan. It used to be the astronomer's or astrologer's house. Yeah, it's an old cold brick building. The floor was all brick. Yeah. And he had one of these very thin mats, straw mats, yeah, Not the nice straw mats, but just the ones, yeah, woven together and kind of scratchy. And he had that on the floor. And Lama would walk around from time to time and inspect our rooms. And I remember, because I lived kind of near where he was, across the hall or something. Anyway, Lama went in and saw him and said, "Oh, yeah, do you think you're Milarepa? Come on, get yourself a mattress. Don't do an ascetic trip." Yeah, he really scolded him. Yeah, why? Because if you do an ascetic trip, but you're not really, you don't really have equanimity regarding your physical situation, then your meditation is just going to go around and around and around. I want. Yeah. Similarly, there are 3 approaches to food. The superior person lives in nature, sustaining himself on the plants, fruits, and herbs found there. Sound good? We harvested our first nettles today and made nettle soup. Hooray! Yeah. Okay. So we have some elderberries. What other things? Your garden, but we're not going to be ravaging your garden. It says it's the wild plants and fruits. Yeah, apple trees. Yeah. Dandelion, make tea. Yeah. Okay, the middling practitioner consumes only food offered on alms round, and in this way does not engage in wrong livelihood and maintains the ascetic practice of just accepting what is given in the amounts that it's given. Someone with lower capacity dwells in a hermitage where a benefactor offers food, or lives with the Sangha community and eats the food offered to it. What you find nowadays is sometimes people doing retreat and cooking their own food. That's really fun. Yeah, because then you can cook what you want. So you're designing, a meal before you cook it. Okay. Then the 5th one, the 5th circumstance, is our involvement in worldly activities must be minimal. So this pertains to my friend helping everybody renew their visas. If we have a job and engage in many projects, they will occupy our mind, making concentration difficult. Writing emails, texting, reading social media, keeping a blog, reading books not related to the Dharma, or caring for family members, and especially getting involved in family dramas, will take us away from our meditation seat and occupy our attention when we're seated on it. Okay, so Xi emphasizes that we must put our responsibilities to rest by ceasing the busyness of ordinary life. So I would say totally offline, 100%. Yeah, which is hard. If you feel responsible to other people, and then you're just doing retreat for a short time, so people want to contact you to to schedule events in the future. Yeah, how can you turn them down because you should finish your retreat and have your whole calendar done? And yeah, then you're just busy involved with worldly events. So Xi emphasizes that we must put our responsibilities to rest by ceasing the busyness of ordinary life. So this involves ceasing to direct our energy towards making a living, as well as avoiding the company of friends, relatives, and people who have no interest or respect for Dharma practice. Okay, so somebody who is ringing doorbells, selling you Girl Scout cookies, which, well, it'll make her happy if I buy some Girl Scout cookies, and I like them, but I'll offer them to the Buddha first. Yeah. Okay. Furthermore, since other interests such as worldly careers, occult practices, I'm doing retreat. Isn't this the time to learn tarot cards? I have break time. I can learn tarot cards in the break time. Yeah, or non-dharma books. So all these other interests are distracting and they are to be avoided. Mm-hmm. Needless to say, nowadays we must forgo watching the news, checking the stock market, writing a blog, and keeping up with friends and events on social media. Yeah. Speaking of social media, I was watching something on my computer today. Not social media, but it was an article talking about the mentality of Generation Z, and so I have a reason for watching it because, young adults are coming and you have to know how to talk to them. But one of the things that was really emphasizing in this is that everything is going so fast and you have to keep up with your friends and the latest thing, that people's minds are just frazzled, because you got to watch this on TikTok and that on TikTok because that's what your friends are watching, but then you have to do your own TikTok program. But then there's this music and that music, and no, TikTok's still good. They haven't banned it yet. Yeah, although I don't know, I don't look at, have they banned it? They wanted to. Anyway, so then the latest music, then the latest article, then the latest everything. And since, that generation, you want to know what's going on because it's everything your friends are talking about and you can't be out of it, then you're just rushing around, your attention split, trying to keep up with this deluge of information. Yeah. Much of it, which is, nonsense or just entertainment. Okay, then the next one is pure ethical conduct. So this is important for doing retreat. So keeping whatever precepts and commitments we have accepted eliminates pure ethical conduct, keeping whatever precepts and commitments we have accepted eliminates regret and remorse. At least we must abandon the 10 destructive paths of action. Without being able to control our coarse physical and verbal actions, which are motivated by coarse afflictions, we will not succeed in pacifying the mental factors that prevent concentration. Okay, so ethical conduct helps us draw back from, the coarse objects and the coarse afflictions. And also, if we don't keep good ethical conduct, what comes up when you're meditating? All sorts of things you did in the past that you have regret for. Yeah, and so you're trying to focus on the Buddha and you're thinking about a breakup from 45 years ago in which you were so mean to somebody, or who knows what we've done or thought of doing, and then so much regret comes up. So we really have to, I think, do a lot of purification before going into long retreat, and or if you do it at the beginning of retreat, because otherwise all this stuff comes up. So the remainder of this section comes from Ji Yi, who explained that pure ethical conduct is essential to prevent distractions and karmic obstacles that interfere with the cultivation of serenity. So, our non-virtue not only generates remorse and regret in our mind, but some of this non-virtuous karma may ripen in the middle of our retreat, and we get sick, our things get stolen, somebody comes up. This happened to the meditators in Tibet in 1959. People came up and said, you can't live in a cave. The communists came up and they were taking over everything and, forced people to come down from their meditation. So, this is the ripening of non-virtuous karma. So that can interfere with retreat too. So you want to keep good ethical conduct and purify from stuff in the past. As in building a house, a firm foundation is necessary before constructing the walls or roof. And that firm foundation is ethical conduct. The essence of ethical conduct is the three disciplines of the Mahayana: to abandon negativities, to accumulate virtue, and to benefit sentient beings. So when you're looking at the Bodhisattva vows and the auxiliary ones under the perfection of ethical conduct, it talks about these three kinds of conduct, and so we have a precept to practice them. In this context, she emphasized the importance of keeping a vegetarian diet, which stops the slaughter of many living beings. Yeah, that's, I think, really important too. Of the three levels of observing precepts, those who are supreme have not committed any of the 5 heinous crimes: patricide, matricide, killing an arhat, causing blood to flow from a Buddha, and causing a schism in a harmonious monastic sangha. Okay, so they haven't committed those. They meet a qualified spiritual mentor, take refuge in the 5 lay precepts, and may have taken the novice or full monastic precepts. Guarding all the precepts well and avoiding the 10 destructive actions, they are free from transgressions. Such disciples are analogous to a cloth that is completely clean and will easily absorb dye. They will attain serenity and insight. So their minds are not tormented by guilt, confusion. Why did I do this? What happened to the person? Remorse, regret, maybe anger at oneself, anger at the person with whom we committed the non-virtue. So the superb person keeps good ethical conduct, so they're free of all that kind of interference in their retreat. Those who are middling keep the major precepts well, but have many transgressions of the minor precepts. If they engage in sincere purification, their Dharma practice will be successful. They are similar to a dirty cloth that has been cleaned so that the dye will take. First group, their cloth was never dirty, so you can just dye it right away. Here, it needs cleaning, but it's cleaned, it takes the dye. The third group, disciples whose ethical conduct is weak, have committed many transgressions of both the major and minor precepts. If the root monastic precepts have been broken with all factors intact, they are no longer monastics and may not reordain in that life. Gulp. That is to be avoided. Their destructive karmic seeds require purification, which can be done by sincere application of the appropriate means. To do this, they cultivate a clear understanding of and a confidence in the law of karma and its effects, and they fear experiencing the results of their destructive actions. They develop a sense of personal integrity and consideration for others, and seek out methods to purify their offenses and negativities. Revealing and confessing their offenses and negativities, they have a strong determination not to do them again. With determination to protect the Dharma, they generate the great vow of bodhisattvas to liberate all sentient beings, which leads them to cultivate continuous mindfulness of the Buddhas in all directions, and to contemplate the offenses and negativities as empty of inherent existence. So that is the menu of what to do if your ethical conduct is weak. Many transgressions. Yeah, so learn the purification methods, practice them, have the four opponent powers, especially a determination not to do those actions again, and then renew the bodhisattva ethical conduct, and then to keep all those commitments and so on, then to develop mindfulness of, and here it says mindfulness of the Buddhas in all directions, and so this made me think of the King of Prayers, where on every atom there are Buddha fields, numerous as atoms, and each with, in each Buddha field, a Buddha surrounded by countless bodhisattvas. So if you make it a practice to think about that all day long, you're not going to be creating a lot of virtue, non-virtue, and you're also not going to have a lot of stuff come up to interfere with your retreat. Except if your mind gets countless. How big is countless? Okay, I've been visualized one Buddha surrounded by 3 bodhisattvas, but this says countless. How many is that? And how do they all squeeze on one atom? This is impossible. Who wrote this anyway? Oh, Samantabhadra. Was he hallucinating? Or did he have realizations? And then again, you're off and running. Okay, so increase mindfulness, keeping your mind on something virtuous. Thinking of the Buddhas, thinking of the bodhisattvas, or here thinking of whatever offenses and transgressions we've done as empty of inherent existence. That doesn't mean they don't exist. It doesn't mean that their effects are canceled completely, but it really helps us overcome the regret and see the reality of the situation much clearer. With these elements and sincere regret, especially for committing the serious offenses, they engage in purification practices until signs of purification arise. So these signs include feeling their body and mind become light and pleasant, having auspicious dreams or seeing auspicious signs, witnessing their virtuous thoughts increase, understanding Dharma teachings, this is signs of purification, and experiencing Dharma joy and a mind free from worry and regret. So when your mind can be happy, especially free from worry and regret, it isn't tied up in being anxious about, this, that, and the other thing. It's not, that's anxiety about the future. It's not tied up in the past. Then then it's much easier to meditate. In addition, they keep the precepts well in the future. Once they have restored good ethical conduct, they will be able to attain dhyana. Okay, so that's a requirement for attaining the dhyana stages, or jhana. Such disciples resemble a very dirty and torn cloth that has sufficiently been patched and cleaned so that the dye will take. Okay. Another way, or an additional way to purify the seeds of heavy destructive karma is, with strong regret, integrity, and consideration for others, to confess to the three jewels and pledge not to do such actions again. So this is what Vajrasattva practice and 35 Buddha practices are. This is their speciality. But you can do that with Chenrezig or Tara or any of them, yeah. With firm concentration, they meditate that these karmas are empty by nature. They also maintain mindfulness of the Buddhas in the 10 directions, and in the break times offer incense and prostrate to them, as well as recite the precepts and Mahayana sutras. So even in the break time, mind is engaged in the Dharma. Yeah. What you do in break time is really important to how your retreat goes. We usually think, oh, it's just meditation time. That's the important part. But what you do in the break time influences your meditation quite a lot. Our activities during the break times between meditation sessions influence the success of our efforts very much. Please see Chapter 6 of the Foundation of the Buddhist Practice that discusses this. Okay, and then the reflection. So first point in the reflection, review the meaning of each conducive condition for cultivating serenity. Favorable place, correct understanding of the instructions for cultivating serenity, freedom from coarse desires, contentment, minimum or minimal involvement in worldly activities, and pure ethical conduct. So contemplate those one by one and kind of evaluate where you are in regards them and how you can, really improve and create the causes and conditions for these good conditions. Yeah. The second one is contemplate why each condition is important, how it benefits your practice, and how not having that interferes with practice. And then 3, consider how you can begin to develop these conditions now. So, when we're really beginning, we think, meditation, you just sit down, close your eyes, and there you go into samadhi. And it takes, maybe 10 minutes to figure out that your ideal vision has some faults in it, Okay, yeah, so taking the time to create these good conditions is important. We often hear people going and doing 3-year retreats. In some of the traditions, or Tibetan traditions, when they're doing a 3-year retreat, what is actually happening is they're learning the basic practices of their tradition. So they may be doing a lot of different Nundro practices and the protector practice, the main deity practice. So they learn all of these different things in the 3-year retreat. In our tradition, usually you do the Nundros in shorter retreats, or as part of your life. And then, but doing the retreat is very good for the Nundro practices. And then 3-year retreat is done later on when you've really done some study, you know how to meditate, what to meditate on, and so on. Yeah. But like I say, we all come to Dharma and like, I want to attain samadhi and sit down and I'm going to get it right away. Just roll my eyes back in my head. It's like, no. Okay. Let's pause here, see if you have any questions or comments so far. Yeah. Wait, somebody's going to give you the mic.
I wanted to know, is there a specific reason why the retreats are 3 years?
It's actually 3 years, 3 phases of the moon, and 3 days. And I guess somebody likes the number 3. I don't really know.
And are you serious about nettle soup, or was that a joke?
No, we have nettle soup.
Like you made it on purpose?
Yeah, it's very nourishing. When you cook the lentils, they don't sting. They only sting when they're raw.
This is not like increasing my enthusiasm about it, but that was offered to the Sangha, and I'm not the Sangha. So.
Now somebody can give you a taste of the nettle soup. Yeah.
What if I have a fairly good concentration for like 30 minutes, but then I come out and I don't know, I'm tired or I don't know.
Yeah. Then just rejoice that you had concentration that long. Yeah.
Okay.
And keep practicing.
Practice.
Yeah. Anything else? Yeah.
It's on.
I didn't quite understand what came in the paragraphs right before the reflection. When it says another way to purify.
Yeah, actually, should be one way to purify.
Okay.
Yeah, that can be changed.
Okay,
Yeah, to
thank you.
one way to purify. Anything else? Okay, then we will go on. So the next section is about observed objects. So this is referring to the object that is your main object when you're developing serenity. Because sentient beings have different tendencies and dispositions, the Buddha describes several objects which could be the observed object for cultivating serenity. And the Buddha's very skillful, and he knew that one size doesn't fit all. So there's a whole bunch of different kind of objects. Yeah, that might work for one person, but not work for another person. In general, any object, internal or external, can be used, even a pebble or a candle. However, this physical thing itself is not the object used to develop serenity. So you don't develop serenity with your eye consciousness, with your visual consciousness, staring at that candle, okay? The conceptual appearance, of it in our mind is the object we focus on, because serenity is developed with the mental consciousness, not the sense consciousnesses, okay? So it's the mental image. So a visual mental image is like when you remember what the Buddha looked like. An auditory mental image is you remember the sound of the gong. Okay, so maybe you're going to have a gustatory mental image and focus on the taste of chocolate brownies, but it's only the mental image. So don't salivate and, make a mess around your meditation. And don't get up and go get brownies in the middle of your session. Usually they use a visual object, but I have heard sometimes people using auditory ones. Okay, but the point is, it's done with the mental consciousness, not sense consciousnesses. Staring at a candle will not lead to serenity, but it probably will give you a headache. Okay, because it won't lead to serenity because it is done with the visual consciousness, which, unlike the mental consciousness, is not stable, is not a stable consciousness, and does not always function. Yeah, you fall asleep, visual consciousness isn't functioning. Yeah, you close your eyes, no visual consciousness. So the sense consciousnesses, they're not stable, they're not always there, much easier for the mental consciousness to be stable and there. Staring at an external object may drive away discursive thoughts, but this quality alone does not constitute serenity. In other words, stopping your discursive thoughts does not mean you've attained serenity. It just means you've stopped all the chatter, okay? However, yeah, and why not? Because maybe you're doing blank-minded meditation now. So you don't have any coarse discursive thoughts, but you're doing blank-minded, and that's not serenity either. Okay. However, we may gain familiarity with the object by looking at it with our visual consciousness, and then lower our eyes and meditate on it with the mental consciousness. So when we use, let's say, the form of the Buddha as our object, then you might look at a thangka or a statue and then close your eyes and, visualize it, imagine it. Yeah. Sometimes I found the word visualize intimidates people because they think like, oh, if I visualize it clearly, it should appear before me in technicolor, just like when my eyes are open. And no, that's not visualization, okay? Visualization is done with the mental consciousness, and you're imagining something. And people sometimes say, but I can't imagine. You can imagine. Probably there's some objects that have attachment that are very easy for you to imagine. Yeah. And what is more difficult to imagine is the figure of the Buddha, because you're more familiar with thinking about objects of attachment. So does that mean that you use your boyfriend or girlfriend as your object to develop serenity? Forget it, folks. No. Yeah, that's not going to lead to a tranquil mind. It's going to lead to a very, very discursive mind, filled with ignorance, anger, and attachment. Yeah, because you'll remember that person at first, and they're so beautiful, and then, oh, now I have samadhi and all their good qualities, and then you remember when they did one small thing you didn't like, and then you start criticizing them, and you're furious with them. Yeah. Okay. So just driving away discursive thought does not constitute serenity. However, we may gain familiarity with an object by looking at it with our visual consciousness, then lower our eyes and have the image, The internal image, the conceptual appearance of the candle in our mind, is the observed object upon which we develop serenity. Okay, now, there's nothing particularly virtuous about a candle, yeah? So this is one reason why, if we're doing something with a visual object, why they recommend the form of the Buddha, yeah, because if you have developed serenity on that, that's really useful to have when you die, because then, you just meditate on the Buddha, you take refuge, all your Dharma teachings come to mind, your mind is peaceful, because thinking, just imagining the Buddha and he's sitting there and he's so calm and peaceful, then your mind becomes like that too. Yeah. Yeah. So the Buddha spoke of 4 main categories of observed objects for meditation. 1, extensive objects. All these will be described below. 2, objects for purifying behavior. 3, objects of expertise. And 4, objects for purifying afflictions. Understanding the purpose and benefits of these various meditation objects, we will choose one of them, not a candle or a flower, as our object of meditation. Yeah. Yeah. Especially speaking to people who were familiar with the New Age magazines and newsletters. So first to talk about extensive objects. Extensive objects are so called because they are used for the development of both serenity and insight. They are of 4 types. So you can use these to develop your analytical abilities and gain insight, or your concentration abilities and attain serenity. So first is of the 4 types of extensive objects. First is analytical images are observed by insight that analyzes its object. So you might analyze the microphone and think of all of its parts and, how it's impermanent, how it's composed of parts, how it's decaying in each moment, and so on, that kind of analysis. Yeah, but you can also use some other thing. Think about impermanence, like your body. That's a good one to reflect on. Yeah, if we think about the impermanence of our body, we begin to see that there's nothing to get attached to in it. Okay, second is non-analytical images. These are observed by serenity that focuses on the object without analyzing it. Okay, so analysis is what brings insight, concentration, and stability is what brings serenity. So it's 2 different abilities bringing 2 different results. When you come to unifying serenity and insight, then the analysis you're doing itself generates pliancy, mental pliancy, and the bliss that comes with that. We'll get into that later, but there is a way to combining it, but talking about it at the beginning, they're separate. So non-analytical images are observed by serenity that focuses on the object without analyzing it. Analytical and non-analytical images are posited in terms of how the mind observes the object. They are conceptual appearances of the object, which may be the 5 objects for purifying behavior, the objects of expertise, and the objects for purifying afflictions. So whatever object you choose, it doesn't necessarily just belong to one category because there's some overlapping. Yeah. Then the third is the limits of existence, refers to the extent of phenomena and are posited in terms of the observed objects. Okay, so analytical and non-analytical were posited or differentiated in terms of how you engage with the object. Limits of existence refers to the object, the extent of the object itself, okay? So the limits for the diversity of phenomena mean phenomena must be either permanent or impermanent. That is the limit of what they can be, okay? So the 5 aggregates are the limit of what impermanent phenomena can be. So if it is impermanent, it must belong to one of the 5 aggregates. So that can be analyzed in depth, yeah? The 4 truths are the limit of what is to be known. Yeah, so if it's an existent phenomena, it can be put into one of the 4 truths. The limits for the nature of phenomena means reason establishes the truth of those meditation objects. Yeah, upon reaching an understanding of the limit of a phenomena, we fix our mindfulness on it with stabilizing meditation. Okay. So for the nature of phenomena means establishing the truth of those meditation objects. So that may involve analysis. You know, is it permanent? Is it impermanent? What's the truth of that? And then focusing on that. Okay. And then the purpose we seek to accomplish is the 4th type of extensive object, and that is posited in terms of the result and refers to gaining the fruit of serenity and insight. So maybe here you focus on, you know, what would it be like to have serenity? What would it be like to have insight? You know, kind of what our purpose is. Okay, so those are the extensive objects. So again, we'll pause because we're kind of at the end of the session. Any, question back here?
Like when you're referring to the object to form like serenity and not necessarily analytical, when you said observe it, do you mean like look at it but not like label it or designation or create like a narrative, just observe what it is?
Yeah, if you're wanting to develop serenity on the mental image of that object, yeah, you would look at it very closely and then think of, recreate it in your mind.
And is the goal, because I know in some settings you say people get too hooked up on the exact details, but when you are doing that, is the goal to construct an exact replica of the thing you've observed?
The goal is to develop stability in your meditation so that you can stay on that object. Yeah. And, if you can have a very clear appearance of it, yes, that's good. The degree of details you need to develop serenity, you have to ask somebody else about that. I imagine that as you focus on one object, your mind will see more and more details about it. Yeah. At the beginning, when we start, we we have to start in a general way. And let's say you're visualizing the Buddha, you just get some kind of somewhat golden figure, and or maybe you just get the head of the Buddha or the eyes. So, it takes time to develop the object. Yeah. If I said pizza, yeah, what kind of pizza is it? Mushroom, cheese, what? Yeah, see, right away what kind of pizza it is, because we have much more familiarity with pizza than we do with the Buddha. Does that mean choose pizza as your object of serenity? If you choose to analyze it and analyze the impermanence of the pizza and analyze the dependent arising and the empty nature of the pizza. Yes, maybe then, yeah. But when you die, you don't want to be thinking of pizza, okay? So this is what they say is one object of, if you focus on the image of the Buddha, yeah. Okay, here.
I really don't get this limits of existence thing. That, like, so like, if the limits of existence of phenomena means it either has to be impermanent or permanent, you're analyzing that, and then something arises in your mind and you stabilize on that, or what?
That's what it sounds like, you know. You're analyzing like the impermanence, and you know, if it's impermanent, you know, or if it's a produced phenomena, it's impermanent. And then, you know, it seems to me that that's what your object would be.
Sooner or later, something stable has to emerge from
Yes.
this analysis. And
Yes.
it
Yes.
just,
And
I mean,
that's
like,
the conclusion that, you know, products are impermanent. Yeah, that impermanent things are produced and they go out of existence too. Yeah. And then I would think, you know, my guess is as your meditation deepens, when you actually get serenity, then your concentration is so good that you can see some of the subtle impermanent changes.
Venerable, I have some vague memory of hearing that you could develop somewhere up the stages of the 9 stages by focusing on a physical object like the breath, but then at some point you can't go further.
Yeah, you
could
can
confirm that?
focus. Many people do it with the breath. But if you study the Theravada teachings, yeah, you start with the breath, and then when your mind gets focused, you get this thing called a nimitta, which is like a visualized object, except you're not creating it, it's appearing. And then that becomes the object on which you develop serenity. Yeah, you start out with the breath, and then it leads to that. Yeah.
These extensive objects meant to be done like one at a time? You would start with number 1 and you accomplish that, or this is just like a personal preference where you would go to with these?
I'm not sure. Yeah. Yeah. I haven't read anything that's given an extensive explanation of the extensive objects. Yeah. So it seems to me that, you know, if you're thinking about impermanence, you may think about different objects and how they're impermanent, and then your object becomes impermanence. Yeah. But maybe see if you can read some texts and find more of an explanation about this. Maybe in Genlam Rinpoche's book there's more, or somewhere, check Geshe Sopa's text. Yeah.
So when we do our Lamrim meditations, the points, there are some times when I'm in a clear space, you've said that when you come to the conclusion, there's actually a feeling experience, either a clarity or a soberness or a joy. That would be, and then you say focus on that. Would that be then an object of meditation? A particular state of mind or feeling in the mind could be an object?
So when we do Lamrim meditation, we use analytic meditation because our goal is really to understand. you know? But then at the end, you focus on the conclusion and stay with that, and that develops serenity. But it implants the meaning of what the conclusion you came to in your meditation. It integrates that with your mind.
Basic form of how to develop this kind of serenity that you can focus so clearly on something.
Yeah,
with
and
that.
it's more a form of how to develop your analysis.
Your understanding of things.
Yeah, but you also can develop some serenity at the end.
Yes, it's nice every once in a while to actually get that feeling at the end of the conclusion, not just have it be like a mind exercise. It's a nice
Yeah,
experience.
no, then you focus on it, yes. Okay. So we can have meditations that aren't strictly one or the other. You need to know when you sit down to do a session what your what your purpose is in this meditation. Okay, let's dedicate. Okay.
May the spiritual teachers who lead me on the sacred path, and all spiritual friends who practice it, have long life. May I pacify completely all outer and inner hindrances. Grant such inspiration, I pray. May the lives of the venerable spiritual mentors be stable, and their virtuous actions spread in the 10 directions. May the light of wholesome teachings dispelling the darkness of the beings in the 3 worlds always increase. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami.
Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious bodhi mind not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. In the snowy mountain pure land, you're the source of good and happiness. Powerful Tenzin Gyatso Chenresi, may you stay until samsara ends. May the deeds of explaining and practicing the Dharma, done by groups supporting the teachings and their upholders, who spread the view of dependent arising and non-violent actions in the 10 directions, and especially at Sravasti Abbey in the West flourish. So stay for a minute and let me know when we're offline. Okay, yeah, so the next few sessions